My name is Eleanor Ellie Whitaker, 72 years young, living in a modest 2-bedroom ranch house on Maple Street in Springfield, Illinois. I've called this place home since 1984, when my late husband Tom and I bought it with his GI Bill benefits and my savings from 20 years sewing alterations at the local dry cleaners. Tom passed 8 years ago from a heart attack that came too quick, leaving me with his pension, modest, my Social Security, even more modest, and a retirement account we'd built slowly, $87,000 in a plain vanilla IRA at the credit union downtown. That money wasn't flashy. It was my safety net. Groceries when prices spiked, the occasional doctor's visit without panic. Maybe one day, a cruise Tom and I always talked about, but never took. My only child, Brittany Marie Whitaker, now 38, divorced twice, always chasing the next big thing, had been living with me off and on for the past 3 years. She called it temporary after her second husband walked out, taking the dog and half the furniture. I never charged rent. How could I? She was my baby. The girl I'd rocked through colic, cheered at soccer games, helped through 2 weddings and 2 heartbreaks. She worked sporadically as a social media influencer, mostly posting sponsored protein shakes and boss babe quotes. But her income was unpredictable, so I covered the Wi-Fi, the groceries, even slipped her gas money when her beat-up Jeep needed filling. It started small. A few weeks before the big betrayal, she asked to borrow my debit card. Just for gas. Mine's maxed on that stupid car payment. I handed it over without thinking. She came back with Starbucks for both of us and a new phone case. Harmless, I told myself. Then came the Friday in late May. I was at the kitchen table balancing my checkbook the old-fashioned way, pen, paper, adding machine, when the credit union app on my phone pinged. Unusual activity alert. I opened it. First transaction, $2,500 withdrawal at an ATM in Chicago O'Hare Airport. Timestamp, 4:17 a.m. that morning. Second, $1,800 at Delta Airlines ticket counter. Third, $4,200 charged to Sandals Resort, Montego Bay, Jamaica. Fourth, fifth, sixth. It kept going. Hotel, spa package, excursions, dinners. By the time I scrolled to the bottom, $42,800 had vanished from my retirement account. She'd somehow gotten the linked debit access I'd set up years ago for emergencies. The IRA was gutted to under $45,000. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on stairs. I called her phone. Straight to voicemail. Text. Mom, don't freak. I needed this. You always say family comes first. I'll pay you back when my brand takes off. Love you. P.S. Jamaica is amazing. Wish you were here. I sat there for hours, staring at the screen. The house felt too quiet. The clock ticked louder than usual. I remembered the day she was born. Tiny, red-faced, screaming. And how I'd promised myself I'd give her everything I never had. Turns out she'd taken it literally. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked the house in my slippers, touching things. The photo of Tom and me on our honeymoon in Florida, the china cabinet with the Limoges plates we'd bought piece by piece at estate sales, the antique oak roll-top desk Tom restored himself, filled with old letters and the family silver service his grandmother brought from Ireland. Brittany had always eyed those things. Mom, when you pass, these are mine, right? Vintage is so in right now. I felt something shift inside me. Not rage yet, but cold clarity. She hadn't just taken money. She'd taken my future, my peace, my ability to say no to a nursing home if my hips gave out. And she'd done it smiling, posting bikini selfies with captions like, living my best life #, blessed #self-care. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to call the police, yet. I was going to reclaim what was mine, starting with the things she'd always assumed were hers. I opened my laptop, searched Antique Appraisers Springfield IL, and dialed the first reputable one, Harlan and Sons Estate Buyers. A polite man named Victor Harlan answered. "How can I help you today, ma'am?" "I have some family heirlooms," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "Silver service, Limoges china, a few pieces of vintage jewelry. I'd like a fair appraisal. House call possible." He was there by noon. Victor Harlan arrived in a navy blazer and sensible shoes, carrying a leather satchel and white gloves. Mid-50s, kind eyes behind wire rims, the kind of man who'd seen every sad story in antique dealing. He didn't rush me. We sat in the living room over coffee. Instant, but he didn't complain. I showed him the china first, 12 place settings of Limoges, gold-rimmed hand-painted roses, never used except for Tom's retirement party. "These are exceptional," he said. "Early 20th century, French import, pristine condition. Next, the silver service, sterling flatware for 12, Gorham Chantilly pattern, monogrammed with my mother-in-law's initials. Brittany had polished them once for Instagram, calling them aesthetic goals. Then the jewelry box, a sapphire necklace Tom gave me for our 25th anniversary, a pearl strand from my mother, and a diamond tennis bracelet I'd worn only to church. Brittany borrowed the bracelet often. "It elevates my look, Mom." Victor examined each piece under a loupe, murmuring notes. When he finished, he sat back. "Mrs. Whitaker, this collection is worth, conservatively, $68,000 to $82,000 at auction. Retail to collectors, higher. If you're selling outright today, I can offer $52,000 cash. No haggling, no fees." I stared at him. $52,000. More than half what Brittany had stolen. My hands trembled. "Why so much?" I asked. "Because these aren't flea market finds. They're provenance rich, excellent condition. People pay for history." I thought of Brittany lounging by a pool in Jamaica, sipping piña coladas bought with my money. "I'll take it," I said. "All of it." He counted out the cash, crisp hundreds and fifties, in stacks on my kitchen table. I signed papers. He loaded the boxes carefully into his van. As he left, he paused. "If I may, this feels personal. Are you all right?" I smiled thinly. "Better than I've been in a long time." Alone again, I sat with the money. I didn't hide it under the mattress. I drove to the credit union, the same one she'd raided, deposited $40,000 into a new savings account in my name only, password protected. The rest I kept for what came next. That evening I went grocery shopping. Not at Aldi, but at the fancy market on the other side of town. I bought filet mignon, fresh asparagus, aged cheddar, a bottle of Cabernet I'd never splurged on. I bought peaches. Out of season. Expensive. The kind Tom loved. I bought dark chocolate truffles. Back home I set the table with paper plates, the good china gone, lit a candle, and ate slowly. The steak melted. The wine warmed me from inside. For the first time in decades, I tasted food without guilt. Brittany texted, "Mom, signal here sucks, LOL. How's the house? Miss you." Attached, a photo of her in a bikini, toes in sand. I didn't reply. Instead, I started researching more. There was the antique oak roll-top desk, Tom's pride and joy, appraised online at $4,500. The vintage Singer sewing machine I'd used for years, collectible now, worth $1,200. Even the old grandfather clock in the hall, ticking away since 1920s. I wasn't done yet. The morning after Victor Harlan drove away with my grandmother's china and the Gorham silver service, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because of worry or habit, but because sunlight was actually touching my face through clean curtains instead of dusty ones. I hadn't washed those curtains in 3 years. Brittany always complained they made the room look old lady. Today I took them down, carried them to the basement washer, and let hot water and detergent strip away years of neglect. While they spun, I made coffee the way Tom used to like it, strong, black, no sugar, and carried the mug out to the front porch. The porch swing creaked under me as I sat. Maple Street was waking up slowly. Mr. Jenkins across the way, mowing his lawn at 7 a.m. like clockwork, the mail truck rumbling by, a neighbor's golden retriever barking at squirrels. For the first time in forever, none of it felt like background noise to my anxiety. It felt like life happening around someone who was finally part of it again. I sipped the coffee and let my mind wander back to the cash still in my purse. $52,000 minus the $12,000 I'd already deposited. The weight of it was strange. Not guilt, not fear. Something closer to permission. Permission to breathe without calculating every penny. Permission to want things for myself. By 9 a.m., I was on the phone again. First call? A furniture restorer in Peoria, who specialized in mid-century oak pieces. I described Tom's roll-top desk, the one he'd spent 6 months sanding and refinishing in our garage back in 1992, cursing every splinter but beaming when it was done. It's got the original brass hardware, pigeonhole compartments, secret drawer and all, I told the man. He asked for photos. I sent them from my phone. Brittany had taught me how to use the camera app years ago, mostly so I could send her pictures of meals she demanded I cook. He offered $4,800 cash if I delivered it that afternoon. I hesitated only a second. I'll bring it. Loading the desk into my old Honda CR-V took help from the teenage boy next door, Jake, who mowed my lawn for $20. He grunted as we maneuvered it through the front door. Mrs. Whitaker, this thing weighs a ton. You sure you want to sell it? I patted the carved wood one last time. It's had a good life here. Time for someone else to love it. The drive to Peoria was 2 hours each way. I turned the radio to an oldie station, Tom's favorite, and sang along to Can't Help Falling in Love, even though my voice cracked on the high notes. When I handed over the desk and took the envelope of cash, the restorer shook my hand. This is a beauty. It'll go to a good home. Back on the highway, windows down, warm May wind whipping my hair, I felt lighter. Not just because the desk was gone, because one more anchor Brittany had tied to my future was cut loose. Day 2. The grandfather clock. It stood in the hallway like a silent sentinel, chiming every hour since before I was born. My father-in-law had wound it religiously until the day he died. Brittany hated it. That thing wakes me up at night, Mom. Can we get rid of it? I'd always said no. Now I said yes, to myself. I found a small historical society in Decatur looking for period pieces. They sent an appraiser who arrived in a pickup truck with helpers. He ran his hands over the mahogany case, checked the brass weights, listened to the chime. Circa 1923, Seth Thomas movement. Excellent condition. We'll pay $3,200. I watched them load it carefully, wrapping it in blankets. When the truck pulled away, the hallway echoed differently. Emptier, but not lonelier. Sunlight reached corners it hadn't touched in decades. That evening I treated myself. I drove to the upscale grocery on the north side of Springfield. the one with valet parking and wooden crates of produce arranged like artwork. I pushed the cart slowly, deliberately. Fresh Atlantic salmon fillets, skin on, thick-cut ribeye steaks marbled with fat, a wedge of aged Parmigiano Reggiano that cost more than a week's worth of my old grocery budget, heirloom tomatoes still on the vine, organic strawberries so red they looked painted, a crusty sourdough boule from the bakery counter, a bottle of Pinot Grigio from Oregon, crisp, not the cheap box wine I used to buy, dark chocolate with sea salt, fresh basil that smelled like summer. At checkout, the total made me blink. $187.42. A year ago, I would have put half back. Today, I swiped my new debit card without flinching. Back home, I unpacked slowly. The fridge light came on like a spotlight, empty shelves suddenly filled with color and possibility. I arranged everything neatly. Salmon on the bottom shelf to stay coldest, cheeses in the crisper drawer, berries in little glass bowls. I stood back and just looked. My fridge had never looked like this. Not even when Tom was alive, and we splurged for Christmas. I cooked dinner for one, pan-seared salmon with lemon butter, roasted asparagus, a simple salad. I ate at the kitchen table with a cloth napkin, candle lit, classical music on low from the radio. Every bite tasted deliberate, luxurious. Mine. On day 4, Brittany called. The phone rang while I was folding the freshly washed curtains. Her name flashed on the screen with that silly heart emoji she'd added years ago. I answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello, honey." "Mom! Oh my God, you have to see this place. The pool has a swim-up bar, unlimited mojitos. I'm literally glowing." Her voice was loud over crashing waves and distant steel drums. "And get this. I met this guy, Derek. He's got like 200,000 followers. Says he can collab with me on a sponsored post next month. This could be it, Mom. My breakthrough." I poured myself a glass of the Pinot Grigio and leaned against the counter. "That sounds exciting. I'm happy for you." There was a pause. "You sound weird, calm. Did you start taking those yoga classes or something?" I smiled into the phone. "Just enjoying the quiet." "Quiet? You're probably dying of boredom without me there to liven things up. Hang in there, okay? I'll bring you one of those cheesy dolphin magnets from the gift shop. You love that stuff." I took a slow sip. The wine was cool and bright on my tongue. "I'm managing just fine. Take care of yourself." "Love you, Mom." Mua. Click. I set the phone down and laughed softly. A real laugh, not the polite one I used to force. Quiet wasn't punishment. It was space. Space to think, space to feel, space to exist without someone else's noise filling every corner. Days blurred into a gentle rhythm. Mornings, coffee on the porch, maybe a chapter from the novel I'd bought at the used bookstore. A cozy mystery, something light. Afternoons, small sales. I parted with my old Singer sewing machine, the heavy black one I'd used to hem prom dresses for Brittany and her friends back in high school. An Etsy vintage dealer paid $1,100 cash after I shipped photos. I used part of it to buy new bed sheets, Egyptian cotton, 800 thread count, soft as clouds. I washed them twice before putting them on the bed, just to make sure they smelled like home instead of store. Evenings, cooking experiments. I tried a recipe for beef bourguignon from an old Julia Child cookbook Tom had given me. It took 3 hours, but the house smelled like red wine and herbs, and when I sat down to eat, I savored every forkful. No rushing, no saving leftovers for someone else. By day 10, my new savings account statement arrived in the mail. $68,400 and change. I'd opened a brokerage account too, talked to a nice fiduciary advisor named Karen, who didn't talk down to me. We set up a simple diversified portfolio, index funds, a little in bonds. "You're in a strong position, Mrs. Whitaker," she said. "This can grow steadily for years." For the first time, years didn't sound like a burden. It sounded like possibility. Then the texts began. Day 11. "Mom, my debit card just got declined at the resort gift shop. Super embarrassing. Can you spot me $500 real quick? I'll Venmo you when I'm home. Pinky swear." I stared at the screen for a long minute, typed one word. No. Sent. Silence for 48 hours. Day 13. "WTF, Mom? You're seriously doing this? It's literally $500. You're being so dramatic over nothing. It's family money anyway." No reply. Day 14. The day before her flight home. I went all out, drove back to the fancy market, bought lobster tails, 4 of them, bright red when cooked, fresh garlic, Yukon Gold potatoes for mashing, romaine for Caesar salad with homemade dressing, a tiramisu from the Italian bakery counter, layers of mascarpone and coffee-soaked ladyfingers dusted with cocoa, a bottle of chilled champagne, real French, not the cheap stuff. I set the dining room table like it was a holiday. New placemats, linen, sage green, candles in glass holders, cloth napkins folded into fans, wine glasses I'd kept wrapped in tissue for decades. The fridge glowed when I opened it. Steaks wrapped in white paper, salmon glistening, berries tumbling in bowls, yogurts in little glass jars, champagne on its side. I stood in the kitchen at dusk, apron still on, and looked around. The house felt different, lighter, warmer, mine. Brittany's flight landed at 6:15 p.m. She'd be home by 8, traffic willing. I poured myself a small glass of champagne, sat in the living room armchair, the one Brittany always called the ugly old lady chair, and waited. The quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was full of me. The grandfather clock was gone, so the house no longer announced time in deep, resonant chimes. Instead, time announced itself through smaller sounds. The soft tick of the wall clock in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator compressor, the occasional creak of floorboards settling in the evening cool. I had grown accustomed to this new quiet over the past 2 weeks. It wasn't empty silence anymore. It was mine. I filled it on my terms. That evening, day 14 since Brittany left, I had everything ready by 7 p.m. The dining room table was set as if for company, though the only guest was myself and the confrontation I knew was coming. Fresh white linen tablecloth, ironed that afternoon, sage green placemats, real silverware. The remaining forks and knives I hadn't sold. Crystal wine glasses I'd kept wrapped in tissue paper since Tom's retirement party. 2 tall candles in silver holders flickered gently. The air smelled of garlic, butter, fresh herbs, and the faint sweetness of tiramisu waiting in the fridge. I wore something simple but nice. A soft navy cardigan over a cream blouse, comfortable slacks, and the pearl earrings Tom gave me for our 30th anniversary. The ones Brittany used to borrow without asking. My hair was neat, makeup light. I didn't dress up for her. I dressed up for me. At 7:42 p.m., headlights swept across the front windows. A yellow taxi idled at the curb. The back door opened. Out stepped Brittany, tanned darker than I'd ever seen her, hair streaked with fresh blonde highlights, oversized sunglasses perched on her head, even though it was dark. She wore white linen drawstring pants, a cropped halter top showing a new belly button piercing, a tiny diamond stud that caught the porch light, and strappy sandals. Her pink hard-shell suitcase thumped onto the sidewalk as she paid the driver with cash, probably the last of what she'd taken from me. The front door opened with the familiar squeak I'd never bothered to oil. "Mom, I'm home!" Her voice was bright, performative, the same tone she used in her Instagram stories. She kicked off her sandals in the entryway, leaving them crooked as always, dropped her purse on the hall table and dragged the suitcase inside. God, that flight was brutal. Economy is literally torture. I need a shower, food, and 10 hours of sleep. What's for dinner? I'm starving. She didn't wait for an answer. She breezed past the living room, didn't notice the empty spots where the china cabinet used to hold court, didn't glance at the bare wall where the grandfather clock had stood for decades, and headed straight for the kitchen like she always did. It was her ritual. Open the fridge, judge its contents, decide what she wanted me to heat up or cook. I followed quietly, standing just inside the doorway, arms loosely crossed. She yanked the fridge handle. The interior light spilled out bright and cold. For a second, nothing. Then her body went rigid. Lobster tails, 4 of them, bright red, nestled on a bed of ice with lemon wedges. Thick ribeye steaks wrapped in white butcher paper, marbled perfectly. Fresh Atlantic salmon fillets glistening under plastic wrap. A shelf of imported cheeses, aged cheddar, creamy brie with truffles, wedges of Parmigiano, heirloom tomatoes, organic strawberries in little green baskets, fresh basil still damp from rinsing, charcuterie meats rolled into rosettes, a bottle of chilled French champagne leaning against a 6-pack of craft, IPA she'd never seen in this house, yogurt in glass jars, artisanal dips, dark chocolate bars with sea salt. The fridge was full, overflowing, luxurious. Everything she used to mock me for never buying. "Mom, why do we always have the generic stuff? Live a little." She stared. Didn't move. Didn't blink. "What the hell?" Her voice came out small at first, then rose. "Mom?" I stepped forward, calm. "Welcome home, Brittany." She spun around. Her sunglasses slipped off her head and clattered to the tile floor. "Where did all this come from? Did you win the lottery or something? Like Powerball? Scratch-off? What?" I walked to the counter, picked up the champagne bottle, and slowly twisted off the foil. No lottery. Just resources I realized I still had control over. Her eyes darted from the fridge to me, then around the kitchen. She noticed the new placemats on the table, the candles, the set places. "You're eating like this now. Lobster, champagne. Mom, this stuff costs a fortune. You've been hiding money? Why didn't you tell me? I could have..." "You could have what?" I popped the cork with a soft hiss. Bubbles foamed gently. I poured 2 glasses, slowly, deliberately. "Used it for another vacation? Another investment in your brand?" She laughed, but it was nervous, forced. "Okay, dramatic much? I borrowed money. Family does that. I said I'd pay you back when things take off. And they will. Derek said..." "Derek." I handed her 1 glass. She took it automatically, fingers trembling slightly. "The influencer with 200,000 followers. The one you met at the swim-up bar." "Yeah." She took a big gulp of champagne, eyes still wide. "Look, I get that you're mad. I shouldn't have taken so much. But come on. This?" She gestured at the open fridge. "You're acting like I robbed a bank. It was 40-something thousand. You had it sitting there doing nothing." I sipped my own champagne. Crisp, dry, perfect. It was my retirement, my safety net. For doctors, for groceries when prices rise, for the day my hips give out and I need help around the house. You took it for unlimited mojitos and private beach cabanas. She rolled her eyes. The old habit, the one that used to make me back down. "Mental health, Mom. Self-care. You should try it sometime. You've been stuck in this house forever. I did you a favor, forced you to live a little. I set my glass down. Funny, that's exactly what I decided to do. I turned and walked into the dining room. She followed, glass in hand, spilling a little on the floor. That's when she really saw it. The china cabinet. Empty. Not a single Limoges plate, not a teacup. The sideboard where the silver service had gleamed for decades. Bare wood. The corner where Tom's roll-top desk used to sit. Vacant. Just a faint rectangle of darker carpet where it had blocked the sun for 30 years. The hallway. Silent. No ticking grandfather clock. Her face drained of color beneath the tan. Mom. Where's Grandma's china? The silver? The desk? Tom's desk? I met her eyes evenly. Sold. All of it. Appraised fairly. Cash in hand. The proceeds replaced what you took, and gave me a little breathing room besides. She staggered back a step, bumping the table. The candle flame danced wildly. You sold my inheritance? Those were mine. You always said, when you're gone, they're mine. The china for my wedding, the silver for anniversaries, the desk for my office when I make it big. You can't just... They were mine, Brittany. My memories. My husband's hands on that wood. My mother-in-law's monograms on those spoons. You assumed ownership because I never said no. That ends now. Tears welled up, real ones this time, mixed with fury. You're unbelievable, selfish. After everything I've done, living here, keeping you company, not putting you in a home. Keeping me company? My voice stayed level, but steel ran through it. You lived rent-free, ate what I cooked, used my car, took my card while I counted pennies for prescriptions, posted sunsets in Jamaica while I wondered how I'd pay the electric bill. She slammed her glass down. Champagne sloshed over the rim. I needed that trip. My brand was dying. You want me to fail? You want your only daughter to be a nobody. I want you to grow up. I picked up a small stack of papers from the sideboard. Bank statements, transaction logs, screenshots of her texts admitting the withdrawal. Here, read them if you want. I've already spoken to the credit union fraud department. They're ready if I file. I haven't yet. That's your grace period. Her mouth opened and closed. No sound came out at first. Then a raw, furious scream tore from her throat, high, jagged, echoing off the walls. You can't do this to me! I hate you! She lunged toward the fridge again, as if opening it wider would make the food disappear and prove this was a nightmare. She grabbed a peach from the crisper, big, velvety, out-of-season, expensive, bit into it savagely. Juice ran down her chin, dripped onto her white top. This is insane, she choked out around the bite. I'm calling a lawyer, elder financial abuse, coercion, something. You can't just sell everything out from under me. I smiled, small, calm. Call 1, I have receipts, timestamps, your own words in black and white, and if you push, I'll press charges for theft. $42,000 isn't pocket change. She sank into the nearest chair, peach forgotten in her hand. Mascara started running. Mom, please. I didn't mean... I was just... I thought you'd understand. You always understood. I understood sacrifice, I said quietly. I understood giving up my dreams, so you could have yours. What I didn't understand, until now, was that you thought my life was yours to spend. Silence stretched between us, broken only by her ragged breathing and the soft pop of the candle wicks. Finally, she whispered, What happens now? I walked to the doorway. Now, you decide. You can stay, if you get a job, pay rent, respect boundaries. Or you can leave. Pack what's yours and go. But the fridge, the house, the money, the life here, it's mine, not ours, not anymore. She stared at the open fridge, at the feast glowing inside, then at me. Really looked, maybe for the first time in years. I reached over and turned off the kitchen light. The glow from the fridge lit her face, shocked, small, suddenly young again. I walked out, leaving her in the half-dark with her choices. The scream had come, but the house stayed quiet. My quiet. The kitchen light stayed off that night. I didn't go back in after leaving Brittany sitting there in the glow of the open fridge, mascara streaked and peach juice drying on her chin. I heard her eventually. Footsteps dragging upstairs, the guest bedroom door closing with a soft click instead of her usual slam. No more screaming, no more demands. Just the house settling back into its new quiet. I slept better than I had in years. Not because the confrontation was over, but because I'd finally said the words that had been locked inside me for decades. No, not anymore. My bed felt wider, the sheets softer, the darkness kinder. No worrying about tomorrow's bills. No calculating how many days until the next Social Security deposit. Just sleep. Deep, dreamless. Mine. Morning came gently. Sunlight through the bedroom blinds. Coffee brewing downstairs on its own timer. A small luxury I'd bought myself the week before. I padded to the kitchen in my robe and slippers. The fridge door was closed. The table had been cleared. Candle stubs snuffed. Champagne glasses rinsed and set in the drainer. Brittany's half-eaten peach sat abandoned on a paper towel, browning at the edges. She'd tried to clean up. A gesture. Small, but there. She came down around 10, hair in a messy bun, wearing one of my old cardigans she'd pulled from the laundry room. No makeup, no attitude, just tired eyes. "Morning," she mumbled, avoiding my gaze as she poured herself coffee. "Morning." I was already at the table with toast, jam, and the newspaper. Real paper, the way I liked it. She sat across from me. Silence stretched for a full minute. "I'm sorry," she said finally. The words came out small, cracked. I knew it was wrong, but I told myself it was temporary, that you'd forgive me like always. I folded the paper. "I do forgive you, Brittany, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, or letting it happen again." She nodded slowly. Tears welled, but didn't fall. "I don't know what to do now. My cards are maxed. Derek ghosted me after the trip. I have maybe $300 left." "Then start there," I said gently. "Get a job. Any job. Waitress, retail, office temp. Doesn't matter. Pay rent if you stay here. Contribute. Respect the house. Respect me." She looked up. "Can I stay? Just until I get on my feet?" I studied her face. The same face I'd kissed goodnight thousands of times. "Yes, but rules. No borrowing. No taking without asking. No more family money excuses. And if you break them, you leave? No second chances on that." She swallowed hard. "Okay." For the next 3 days, she tried. She applied to 6 jobs online. Coffee shops, a clothing store at the mall, even a call center. She helped with dishes without being asked. She didn't touch her phone every 5 seconds. It wasn't perfect. She sulked sometimes, scrolled Instagram when she thought I wasn't looking. But it was effort. Real effort. On the 4th morning, she packed her suitcase. Not in anger. Quietly. "I got an interview tomorrow in Chicago," she said over breakfast. "Entry-level social media coordinator at a small marketing firm. Pays okay. They're doing hybrid, so I can find a cheap room to rent." I nodded. "That's good." She looked around the kitchen, the full fridge, the clean counters, the sunlight on the table. "You look happy. Like really happy." I don't think I've ever seen you like this." "I am," I said simply. She hugged me goodbye, awkward at first, then tighter. "I love you, Mom. I'm going to try to be better." "I know you will. And I love you too." The taxi came. She left. No drama. No slam doors. The house felt bigger after she was gone. Not empty. Bigger. I walked through the rooms slowly, touching the places where things used to be. The bare spot in the hallway. The empty china cabinet now holding a few potted herbs I'd started growing on the windowsill. I didn't miss the objects. I missed the version of myself who thought she had to keep them for someone else. Weeks turned into months. I kept the routines I'd built. Mornings on the porch with coffee. Walks around the neighborhood with the senior group. 3 ladies and 1 gentleman who always brought extra water bottles. Afternoon reading, evening cooking experiments. Coq au vin one night, homemade lasagna the next. I even took a beginner's painting class at the community center. Acrylics, nothing fancy. But I came home with a small canvas of sunflowers that now hung in the living room. In July, I booked the cruise. Caribbean, 14 days, solo cabin with a balcony. I chose the one Tom and I had circled in a brochure 20 years ago. The itinerary with Aruba, Curaçao, and a private island stop. I paid in full. No guilt, no second guessing. When the departure day came, I stood at the rail watching the ship pull away from the dock in Miami. The sun was warm on my face, the ocean endless blue. I raised a glass of champagne to the horizon. "To us, Tom," I whispered. "We finally made it." Back home in September, the house welcomed me like an old friend. Mail piled up, mostly bills, a few postcards from the trip I'd sent myself, and 1 envelope from Brittany. Inside, a check for $5,000, a note. "Mom, first 5 payments. I got the job, moved into a studio in Logan Square. It's small, but mine. I'm paying rent on time. No more excuses. I miss you. Not the old way, the new way, the way where I want to be someone you're proud of. Call me when you're back. Love, Brittany." I put the check in the bank. Then I called her. We talked for an hour. No accusations, no apologies repeated. Just catching up. She told me about her new boss, her tiny balcony with 1 plant, the coffee shop down the street that made decent lattes. I told her about the cruise, the painting class, the way the porch swing still creaks the same. It wasn't fixed, not completely. Trust takes time, but it was started. These days, the fridge stays full. Not extravagant every day. Balance matters, but never empty. I buy the good peaches when they're in season. I drink wine on the porch some evenings. I look in the mirror and see a woman who chose herself, finally, after 72 years of choosing everyone else. And every night, before I turn out the light, I whisper the same thing to the quiet house. Thank you. Not to Brittany, not to Tom, not even to the antiques I sold. To me. The woman who said no. The woman who said yes to her own life. Freedom doesn't taste like revenge. It tastes like freedom. And it's delicious.